Hello, and welcome back to Women for Wealth. So, today I want to talk a little bit about emotions and how it ties to money and finances. So, first of all, I want to talk about women because part of the reason why I started this channel is because as a woman, I recognize that I have different emotions tied to money than my husband does, as well as my friends and my family. There's a lot of females that just have a lot of anxiety and stress around money, whereas their partners don't. And so I just want to chat about that a little bit because there's a wide range of emotions that people can experience around money. So with women, oftentimes money and concerns about financial stability brings about anxiety, especially when there is an unexpected financial obligation. The car tire blows out and you need to buy a new one. The middle kid needs braces all of a sudden, and you hadn't budgeted expected for that yet. And back when my kids had braces, the insurance didn't cover it, so all that had to come out of pocket. Well, if you hadn't planned for that, that can be a shock to the financial system, which does bring about a lot of anxiety. So, women tend to worry about finances, about themselves as well as their family. It's not just how they feel about money, but it's also how money affects their family. Is their money, enough to make sure their family is secure? And if anything comes up, that the kids are well taken care of, that there are no surprises, or if they are, that they've got emergency reserve funds to be able to cover that. There's a lot around women and money and wealth. But money and wealth can be empowering for women. If a woman has good financial independence, meaning they feel confident that they have saved enough for retirement, they feel confident that they've got 6 to 9 months worth of bills covered in their emergency savings, if they feel comfortable and confident that their family, themselves, as well as their children and their husband, is going to be financially taken care of, then that can actually be encouraging and empowering to women. So we want to move from the anxiety to the empowerment stage. Because let's face it, if you don't have enough money, or you don't know what you got, or you don't know that you're covered, or you don't have confidence in the financial plan, it's very frustrating. And it's really frustrating, especially if you and your spouse are not on the same page. If you've got a spouse that doesn't want to talk about money because it can cause arguments and problems within the relationship, so they just kind of shut down, well, that can be very frustrating. So you've got to find a way to communicate with your spouse, both men and women. Men, if you want to talk to your women and your wives about money and how it affects them, understand that women do tie emotions to money more than men do. There are men that can feel frustration and anxiety. Most of the time, men feel that as a projection from their spouse, as a projection from their wife. They feel those emotions. Women tend to experience and feel those emotions directly, personally. They personally get anxiety. They personally get frustrated. And fear, fear of poverty, fear of what happens if, those worst case scenarios. I'm just going to be honest with you. I've had 2 friends that have had really major financial issues in their lives. One of them, I got a phone call. For those of you that don't know, I do free coaching for women in STEM and women entrepreneurs. Some of that has entailed financial coaching. Usually it's career coaching. But one of the girls that I had been coaching, she had taken off for maternity leave. So she was giving birth and raising her son. So she was not bringing in an income. Well, her husband was also an engineer. He was making good money. They knew 9 months in advance when the baby was coming. So they had properly put plans in place to save money and have extra money set aside for when she would go out on maternity leave, so the family would be okay. But still, she's a new mom. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of emotions going through her. Her husband had a minor heart attack, and she calls me in a panic. First thing she said when I answered the phone was not, "Hello, how you doing?" "Hey, how's your day been?" It was, "He could have died." That's how she started off the conversation. And she was right. Her husband had a heart attack. That's very serious. That's something to not take lightly. First of all, is he okay now? Yes, he had gone to the hospital. He's taken care of. He's fine. He's going to be following up with a heart specialist. Great, wonderful. That's the most important thing, that he is okay. But immediately she went to the fear of, are we going to be in poverty? Are me and him and my new baby going to be, homeless? Because we can't afford a place to live because I'm not working while I'm on maternity leave. And if he were to pass, what would me and my child do? Life is good. Life is okay. God is in control. Don't worry. Now, for your fears about losing your home and not having a roof over your head for yourself and your son, let's talk about that. Let's put a plan in place. You had prepared for maternity leave. You have 6 months of emergency savings. So you've got that set aside. If you have to pull from it, you will replace it. Plus, let's remember, you are an engineer. And when you go back to work, or when you decide to go back to work, if you decide to go back to work, because she was considering becoming a stay-at-home mom, as an engineer, she has a higher than average salary. And with some planning and some proper budgeting, her and her son would be fine on a single engineer salary, because that's what they had planned to do with her husband. They had planned to live off of just his engineering salary. So if something were to happen to him, God forbid, her and her son would be okay just off of her engineering salary. Now, I understand she was considering being a stay-at-home mom, but if a life event is major as the heart attack resulted in death, which again, we pray never happens, but if that were to happen, she could work as an engineer and still raise her son. It might not be ideal, it might not be what she wants to do, but she could do it. A second example. So John was a good friend of mine. He was an engineer. He and his wife had 2 sons. She decided to be a stay-at-home mom because he was an engineer and had a good enough salary they could live off of his salary alone. So she didn't work. She never worked. For 2 decades, she had 0 out of the house job. So her skill sets had diminished during that time. He was on the way to work one day. He had a fatal car accident, completely unexpected, devastating to the family. The oldest son was getting ready to go away to college. The youngest son was in high school. She had no income. She had no skills. She didn't know what she was going to do. She just always expected John, her husband, to be there to provide financially for the family. Totally unexpected. They did not have an emergency savings account. They had like the baby emergency account of like $1,000, and that was it. He had health and life insurance through his employer. Upon his death, they lost their health benefits, and his life insurance paid out. Unfortunately, it was a fraction of what it needed to be, which is something we'll talk about later. Just being able to maintain semi-normal lifestyle, she blew through the life insurance, unfortunately, relatively quickly. She did not have a plan for how she was going to spend it. She was emotional. She did some emotional spending. She bought the oldest son a car to go away to college with. She didn't buy him a used beater that would get him from point A to point B, but she bought him a nice brand new truck to go to college with. The younger son that was in high school, she went and bought him, like on a spending spree, bought him all kinds of clothes for back to school. For herself, she had gone and purchased, the Gucci bag and, several of the high items, merchandise, clothing wise, the manis, the petties, the hair done, the microderm abrasion. I don't even know exactly what that is, and I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly. I completely understood the emotional tailspin that her and her family was in at the sudden loss of her husband. I completely understand that. If the unlikely event happens in your life, which I hope and pray it doesn't, do nothing at least for a month. Let yourself process the emotions first. Then, when you can be rational and logical, sit down, write out a plan, write out a budget. What are you going to do with this money that you get from the life insurance policy? Especially if it's not enough, especially if it's not going to cover things. You need to write down and have a plan and make a conscious decision of how you're going to spend this money. And I understand that emotions and money are tied together, especially for women. I get it. I understand it, which is why it's more important for us to write things down, to really take a deep breath, get logical, get the emotion out of it, and write things down and make a plan. Let's talk about guilt. The second example I gave you, where she went out, she got the manis, the petties, the Gucci purse, the microderm abrasion, the new clothes. She felt guilty about that after the fact because she felt in the moment, she felt she had to make herself physically, appearance-wise, presentable to get back on the dating scene. That was what she said. She said, I've got to look good enough to find another husband because I can't do it alone. And I remember telling her, you can do it alone if you choose to, but you need to make the conscious decision that you're going to do it. You need to come up with a plan and then execute that plan, but you can do it. She was like, no, I've got to find another husband. I've got to look good enough for another man to want me. Well, then, fast forward, gosh, it was probably a year later. The money was gone. The oldest son is in college. The younger son's still in high school. They were doing well. They had adjusted. They were doing good. Both of them had good grades in school. Both of them had a positive social life, but the money was gone. She had blown through the life insurance. The money was gone. And so what do? Do you call up your oldest son and say, I'm sorry because I, spent all this money wastefully back then because I was emotional and upset and I was trying to fill the gap with material items. I don't have enough money to let you go back to school for another semester. You're going to have to come home. You're going to have to quit college. You're going to have to get a job. Well, that is a very difficult conversation to have. And she felt a ton of guilt. A ton of guilt. And so you need to have a written budget. You need to know what you can spend, what, where, and how. Every month, if you want to do these extra things for yourself or for your kids, or you want to splurge or you want to spoil somebody, be it yourself or a family member, have the budget to know how much you got to do that with. In your budget, include a line item. I write down Circes. Circes are just little things, little surprises, just something to make somebody smile and happy for the day. It doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be big. It can be something small, but just something to let people that I love know, hey, I love you, I appreciate you, thank you for being here. If you've got a bigger budget, maybe instead of putting Circes, you want to put, I don't know, call it whatever you want to call it. But have money set aside to do that so that when you spend it, you don't feel guilty. If you've got the money in the budget to get manis and petties and your hair dyed every month, then put that in your budget. Make a line item for that. Put it in your budget and say, okay, I have in my budget this amount every month that I can spend on those items. And include them and give it a name, give it a dollar amount, and then stick within that budget. Then you don't feel guilty. Then you can go and enjoy the pampering and enjoy yourself and feel good about spending that money because you know that you budgeted, everything else is taken care of. You know that you've got your short-term emergency money as well as your 6 to 9 month emergency budget. You know that you're taken care of. You've got that security and you can enjoy yourself instead of feeling guilty.